native apps versus hybrid apps versus web apps. My name is Jameson Saunders, and let's compare each of these in this video, starting off with what is a native app. Let's get a clear definition of that first. So a native app runs on a phone, either iOS or Android. It's very rare that you'll see something that builds a native app for both iOS and Android. There are some exceptions like NativeScript, if you've ever heard of that, but it's honestly quite a far way off from being able to build true native apps with all the bells and whistles necessary, such as being fully optimized for mobile and allowing the app to call all phone features such as the flashlight and anything that's native to the device, anything that your phone has on it. So the main characteristic of what a native app is being truly integrated with that system, whether it's iOS or Android, it being a very fluid experience for that particular platform. And as such, it typically requires you to write a separate code base for both iOS and Android, and that is one of the key distinctions here. And also there is a very slow deployment cycle for releasing new versions because you're typically held back by the App Store and the Google Play Store, whichever one it is. App Store tends to be quite a bit slower in terms of releasing updates, and hybrid apps have a way of circumventing this, but we'll talk about that later. And now let's look at what is a web app. Well, a web app is basically just a website. It runs in a browser, it has a domain, youtube.com, that's a web app. It's optimized for the web, of course, and it may use web libraries such as NPM, if you've ever heard of that. That's basically a huge collection of libraries you can use, often free, in your code to really boost development and make things go a lot faster. And in addition to developing fast, it's also fast for deployment. So if you want to publish a new version of your web app to everyone in the world, you can simply upload a new version of that web app to your server, and as soon as anyone reloads their page, they automatically have that new version pulled directly from your server. And contrasting that with what we had to do before with native apps have to go through the gatekeepers, but with web apps, you're in control. You just push something to the server and boom, everyone has the up-to-date version. And finally, what is a hybrid app? Well, a hybrid app mixes together both of those worlds. It runs on a phone for both iOS and Android. And the reason it can go for both of them is because a hybrid app actually runs on a browser. So it's really a web app which is packaged into a native app. And that's why it can both run on a phone as well as on a browser. And it can even run on a desktop, but all the time it's really optimized for the web, so you might not have as seamless of an experience when using a hybrid app. However, hardware is getting so fast now that it's really a negligible difference, and for most applications you should not witness any speed difference whatsoever. It should look as smooth as can be. So here's a little diagram of what it looks like. You have the JS, the HTML, and the CSS. That's like the web code. That is inside of a web view, inside of a native wrapper, which is on the device. So the web code is basically being wrapped up inside of a native app, and then it's put on the device. And that's why it's able to run on the browser as well as on iOS and Android, all with the same code base. And because of that native wrapper, it's actually able to call many of the phone features, such as like the flashlight and accessing the contacts and things like that. That's all possible because the web code can actually communicate with the wrapper and then call functionality on the device, like turning on the flashlight and so forth. Yet because it's a web app, it can actually use NPM libraries as well, so it's really getting the best of both worlds. Plus you have the potential to do web deploys as well, so you can instantly publish a new version available for all of your users at once, and that's regardless of device, and that's regardless of any gatekeepers. You can just go right past the gatekeepers and release your update. Now, I've presented the facts to you. I've laid out exactly what each of them are, the pros and cons of each of them, and you can do your own analysis and determine which one is right for your project. Some projects it's probably better to use native code because you specifically need to have a very fluid integration with one particular thing. However, you're going to have to make two apps, one for iOS and one for Android. So for me, for most of the apps that I build, what is my choice for building apps? Well, I choose to use hybrid, and specifically I use Ionic in order to build those hybrid apps. It's by far the most popular hybrid app tool, and it's being used by some giant corporations like McDonald's, New York Times, a bunch of huge other ones I can't remember. And within Ionic you can choose a framework in order to structure your code, and the one I like the best is Angular. I have an entire video explaining the difference between Angular and React. I'll leave an annotation up there if you're interested in that, but my choices are Ionic to build the hybrid app, and then within Ionic I use Angular to actually write the web code. If you're interested in learning to use Ionic with Angular and also Firebase as a backend to save the data, I've put together a course called Mobile App Development. If you're interested, I encourage you to check it out at jamisonsaunders.com/app. But if you're just here for entertainment purposes, then thanks for watching. Make sure to subscribe if you like videos like this, and I'll see you in the next video.